Hello everyone, this is GW31979 here, and this is part 2 of part 1 based on the video of what Tito the Fresh posted up a couple of days ago called the Real Definition of Racism. Here it goes. We'll talk about ancient Carthage. But before we go there, we're going to go through here in Europe. Now we know ancient Carthage ruled from Spain all the way to Morocco, Gibraltar, colonial Morocco, the edge of Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, edge of Egypt, and onward. If I'm not mistaken, yep, they pretty much ruled the edges of the Mediterranean coast because these were all trade routes. Now it consists of Italy, Naples, Sicily, Sardinia, Greek islands. There's the southern Europe, known as Central Europe for the most part, and then the far west would be Spain, Portugal, on to the Mediterranean, southern western part, and then Midwest will be France, and then far west, northwest will be United Kingdom, the British Isles, Ireland, Scotland, Isle of Wight, Isle of Man. Then you got Germany. Then you got Berlin. Not Berlin. Yeah, you got not Berlin. Sorry. Yeah, you got Berlin up north in Germany and south. And then you got what about France? Oh my God, I forgot. But anyway, Belgium, yes. Then you got Sweden. Further north, you got Sweden, Norway, Finland, Poland, Ukraine would be the far east. Russia is the biggest landmass. But we're going to talk about this section here, the Mediterranean and parts of the west and the northwest of Africa right here, all the way up to the northeast, which would consist of Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Oman, the United Empires of Arab, or Arab United Empires, Iraq, Jordan, Syria. Alright. The whole thing, I'm just taking it further back. I'm not like trying to discredit what he's saying. What he's saying is 110% true. But it really goes further back during the Punic Wars with Europe versus Africa. Here goes. The Carthaginian Republic, known as the Carthaginian Empire, was the Phoenician city-state of Carthage and was the sphere of influence in which include much of the coastal North Africa as well as the substantial parts of the coastal Liberia and the islands of Western Mediterranean during the 7th and 3rd century BC. The city called Quat, known as the New City, the Phoenician language was founded in 814 BC. A dependency of the Phoenician state of Tyre. At the time, Carthage gained independence around 650 BC and was established as political hegemony over the Phoenician settlements throughout the Western European Mediterranean, which consists of Spain and Portugal. This lasted until the end of the 3rd century BC and at the height of the city's prominence. It was the major hub of trade, with trading stations extended throughout that region. Now, for those that know the history, we all know about the Punic Wars. We know how that turned out. Boom. broke the treaties and put heavy sanctions deliberately on purpose. Basically whitewash their history, kill off all the men, impregnate half the women, and whatever men they had left, they enslaved them all. And the main reason why they did this, they made it crystal clear that they would never. Let me go back to Africa. Matter of fact, hold on. Give you a better depiction. They would never. These are all the territories that Carthage ruled throughout. If you divide them up in centuries. Okay? They ruled most of Spain by 218 at the beginning of the Second Punic War, and still controlled trade sections. Rome couldn't go past north and south. They couldn't go across the sea. This was about rule based on natural resources. So here's the definition of racism. To start around this time frame, at 265 BCE, and then by the end of the Punic War, if I'm not mistaken, let me go further down, the Third Punic War. Yeah, I think I went past it. Yep. I think I went past it. The Punic War. Okay. By the Third Punic War, I'd say the end of it, 146 BC, the third and last of the Punic Wars. The war was so much smaller engagement than the two previous Punic Wars because it dragged for 30 to 40 years at a time, primarily consisted of the single main action of the Battle of Carthage, but resulted in a complete destruction of the city of Carthage and all remaining Carthaginian territory by Rome, and the death and enslavement of thousands of Carthaginians. The Third Punic War and the Carthaginian independent existence. They basically just did a genetic, or known as, nearly close to a genetic democide on the public. And they made it clear when they obliterate their language, dismantle their culture, enslave their inhabitants, by the general Scipio Africanus. Have you ever noticed why Africans don't call themselves Africans? They name themselves based on the states or the countries or nations that they reside in. They would never call themselves African, let alone they would never call themselves African. Because that would call themselves, name it after a conquering Roman general. This is how powerful racism really is. It's mainly psychological. So when you have a group of people that could be ruthless as you, if not more ruthless and much more barbaric, fraudulate your identity and your history, and discredit you as a human being, then you got issues. So we all know years go by after Carthage. Eventually Rome managed, when they became a severe empire, by under Julius Caesar, when they conquered Egypt. When they conquered Egypt, right over here. When they conquered Egypt, right over here. Right here. They own the system. They control Africa. The moment they did that, they control Africa. Literally, they control pretty much all. Once you conquer Egypt, you control this whole section right here. They control trade, they control the natural resources and whatnot. And they're just going further southward. And they made it crystal clear you will never see a group of dark skins, let alone Africanoids, roaming in Europe to regulate trade and control the flow of the economy. That would never ever happen again, so they thought, until the fall of Rome in 434 BC. And Tito the Fresh went on that discussion. And make a long story short, a couple of centuries after is when you had a group of Moors that came from these regions. Originally started in West Africa, and they spread outward onto the Arabian tribes and start forming a nation. And then they worked their way up. They then went to Italy. At that time, you had nothing but the city-states was run by Catholic churches. The church actually controlled the money. The church dictate you could have a trial. Church dictate the nation can have funding for war and funding for infrastructure. But Spain was so intellectually powerful when Moors controlled Spain, they owned the whole fucking European continent. Even though the Khazars were still running amok and still try to be in the disguise of the Vikings, which most Vikings died out. Whether we may call themselves Vikings, most of them had the Ashkenazian, which is Khazars. Khazars is a religion. Ashkenazi is their actual bloodline, Jews. They regulate Europe for 830 straight years, for almost a millennia, non-stop. They regulate rule. And you fast forward to, what is it, 1453? I think it was 1458. I think when they finally bullied them out. And what hurt the Moors was they had a great military tactics, including naval. Here's the problem: they never utilized the naval practices to cover and protect their ports. I never understand that. Never will. But they let Europeans live in peace. They taught them how to read, write, and count, spell. Hell, a lot of Europeans today inherit some of the Moorish last names for obvious reasons. Because there's a lot of gene mixing there to save the European Empire or the European civilization. And I'm going to tell you why. Europe as a whole will die from disease. Don't forget, even on to close to the Renaissance, Europe population dwindled. When the Moors were around, they were thriving. And the Moors helped to regulate sanitation to prevent the bubonic plague, or known as the Black Death, in Europe. So when they got rid of the blacks in, I think, 1453, they went back from having a plague. They went back from having unsanitized water. They went back from having the dirty habits that fucked them up when the Dark Ages arrived. And Europe was piss poor broke. And they had nothing but diseases and fleas and slaves, robber baron merchants, and pirates always plagued Europe. This is part one of this is part two, but part one of the series. GW31979 here, out.